Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have been asking me for months to watch this show, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and react to it. So that's what I'm going to do. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. I'm going to watch this show and see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
Look, here we are.
Here we are.
Talking about not easy.
Well, I know, but I really care about you. I always have. I've taken a lot of time to self-reflect.
Yeah.
And I want to apologize if I hurt you. I know I did.
Okay, as many of you know, I will often evaluate people's apologies on these shows because it's an important part of life. I use these shows as a jumping off point to talk about other kinds of things, relationship things, therapeutic things, psychological things, and apologies are a really major part of having functional relationships. We all make mistakes, and we should apologize for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is so that we can build trust with the other person. How do we build trust? Well, we have to convey that we really understand what we did that was wrong. We also, to build trust, we have to show the other person that we have investigated why we did what we did. If I'm in a golf cart, for example, I don't know why I'm coming up with this analogy. Sometimes analogies just pop into my head. I haven't golfed in years, but anyway, imagine I'm in a golf cart on a golf course, and I'm haphazardly talking with people. I'm on my phone, and then boom, I hit my friend with the cart. Well, if I get out and I just say, "Look, I'm sorry," and my friend, who I go golfing with all the time, looks at me and is just like, "That's it, I'm sorry." Well, the reason why they'd be upset is that I would have to say to them, "Look, I'm sorry. The reason why I hit you is because I wasn't looking. I was talking to my friends. I was texting on my phone. That's why I hit you. I need to stop doing that." So when we investigate first and then convey that investigation to the other person, we're not excusing it, we're explaining it. And why are we explaining it? Well, it's to show the other person that we've investigated and we've done the steps necessary to try to avoid doing it in the future. If I just say I'm sorry, that's not really an apology unless I really convey, what did I've thought about this, and I know what so the other part of an apology, there's many parts, and I talk about it in other episodes, but another part is that you understand what you did to the other person. I get out of the cart and I say, "I'm so sorry, that must have hurt really bad. I'm so sorry." You want to convey emotion from yourself. You're terrified, you're mortified, you're scared for the other person. You're feeling the emotions and you're conveying them. And you're also having empathy for the other person. That must have really hurt. You must be really angry at me, and you're right to be angry at me. That's one of the first steps. And then it's the investigation. It's the I'm going to change my behavior in the future so I don't do this again. So let's see if she has those components. She seems to be starting off pretty well. She seems to be genuinely sorry. Let's watch.
I want to apologize for that because my intention is to never hurt you. Hurt people.
Yeah.
And I was hurt and I hurt.
All right. So that's some of the elements of a good apology. Garcelle doesn't seem to be very convinced, so that appears to indicate that Garcelle might need some more emphasis, more explanation, more digging deep for Lisa, I believe. By the way, I normally will go back to the very beginning. People ask me to watch a reality show or a particular relationship on a show, and I'll start mid-season and people will be like, "No, you got to go back to the beginning." I'm like, okay. So I go back to the beginning, which is good, but it takes a lot of time. Like with Darcy, I went all the way back to the beginning on 90 Day Fiancé. That took a while. With this show has been on for decades, or I don't know how long, and there's many iterations of it. It would take me literally years if I went back to the beginning. So I hope that it's okay that I start with the current season. Maybe if something really inspires me, I'll go back to the very beginning. So I'm guessing there's going to be a little bit of annoyance for some of you because you know these people forwards and backwards. Potentially, I don't. Anyway, so I believe that's Lisa and Garcelle. So Lisa apologized. She seemed to be sincere, and she even had an explanation. She said, "Hurt people hurt people." It's a really accurate saying that when we are hurt, we tend to hurt we don't always, but we might hurt other people with our own hurt. And Lisa's saying, I am a hurt person and I hurt you. So, but Garcelle seems a little skeptical. Usually when you're on the receiving end of that, you're thinking, is this just lip service? Do you really care? Are you just going through the motions? Am I really feeling it? Do I still have resentment and feelings? You might be in Garcelle's shoes and you might be like, well, okay, thanks for apologizing, but I don't think you really get what you did. Like, you did this, this, and this. Like, do you understand what? And then, there's maybe a back and forth. Let's watch.
Here we are.
I was harder on Denise than I needed to be. I'd much rather been like you and gone, I don't care, I'm standing by my friend.
I believe they're talking about Denise Richards, who was on the show. But anyway, from Starship Troopers, a great movie. But Garcelle, upon hearing the apology, said, okay, well, here we are. A very vague statement. I wonder why she's saying that. I'm guessing that she doesn't want to extend herself. Again, maybe she still has some of that resentment, and she's looking, she's like waiting to see, like, are you going to really apologize? Maybe she doesn't trust Lisa for some reason. But I wonder. Or is Garcelle being unfair? Should Garcelle say, well, I appreciate the apology, and I think there's a lot more apologizing that needs to be done, but thank you for that. So one of the things that we can learn from this apology example is that if you're getting an apology and it doesn't seem to fully encompass the necessary apology, that's okay. That doesn't mean you have to reject the apology. You certainly can if you want to. But a more back and forth, functional, often healthy path is to accept the apology. I accept your apology. And then say, but I don't know if do you really get what you're apologizing for? Do you really understand? Because in order for me to have trust in you again, in order for our relationship to repair, I really need you to understand these 3 points. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. But based on the way you apologized, I don't really know if you do. I don't know if that's what Garcelle's thinking, but that's what.
Like, that's up. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah. I think Rinna is trying to own it really quickly so that I don't come for her.
Ladies, how we doing?
Great.
Good, I think we should drink.
Let's drink.
All right.
Okay, so she just called her Rinna, and I'm looking at the cast members over here, Lisa Rinna. So maybe that they call her Rinna because there's another Lisa Vanderpump. Anyway, again, some of you know these characters backwards and forwards, and I'm really sorry. I'll get into it. I'll get used to it.
Why couldn't you just let the other girls come after her?
Garcelle, I wish I could. I couldn't. Because
You couldn't because
it
you
wasn't
had to be
honest.
right?
No, it just wasn't.
But so what?
I know.
Like, why do we have to check each other on being honest or not?
All right, so Garcelle is laying out some additional complaints, saying, okay, I hear your apology, but why did you have to do this thing from the past? And Rinna is saying, well, I don't know, it just seemed kind of right. But then Rinna agrees. You're right. You could kind of see it in Rinna's reaction that Rinna agrees. Now, Rinna doesn't have to agree, but it certainly is a healthy move, if you can, to agree with what someone is saying about you, if you can.
I don't either, but I'm going to say it about myself. I was in a lot of ways.
I'm not going to disagree.
Don't disagree. I know that there's a lot of hurt. It's going to take you a minute to trust me, but I think the best thing for us to do is move on from that.
So Lisa Rinna, is asking Garcelle to move on. What is the message there? Usually it's like, stop being mad at me. I want to be friends again. I don't want to talk about what I did that was wrong before. So, yeah, I understand that anyone apologizing would want that. It's like, I'm apologizing. Can we move forward and forget that I ever did that? That's fine. But usually you want to let the person move at their own pace. You don't want to pressure someone to do that. So a more, I think, healthy way to ask that would be to say, hey, Garcelle, I really like you. I'm sorry I did that. I feel bad, and I want you to trust me, and I want to move forward and build trust back with you. But I can't tell you what to do, but I would really love to move on from this. But of course, that's up to you, because you have your feelings, and is there anything else that maybe you would need from me if you couldn't move forward from this, instead of just saying, let's move forward?
I would tread lightly, but I'm open.
Good.
I'm open.
That's all I could hope for.
Okay, so this is good. On the scale of functionality, I think this is pretty functional compared to other kinds of conversations that we've seen on other shows. Pretty functional. They are, it's a pretty good apology. It could have been more elaborate. It could have been more empathetic, I think. I don't know what the transgression was. And for Garcelle, she's like, well, okay, let's tread lightly, meaning I'm still not entirely sure about you and your tendency to be a jerkface sometimes, but I'm willing to give this a try. And then Rinna says, that's all I can ask for. Thank you so much. Pretty functional.
Yeah, I went to Cal Arts and studied animation. I started at Disney. That's what brought me to LA, and then I've been here ever since.
How long?
I went, my first year was 1980.
Wow.
I met him when I was 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't really think that much about an age difference in a marriage.
So, as many of you know, I will often try to destigmatize age differences in romantic relationships. I'll say this again, I've said it many times, we have this heuristic, this shortcut when it comes to age differences that is for kind of a good reason, but we over-apply it. When we see a 12-year-old with a 20-year-old, we don't want to know anything more about the relationship. We automatically will label that as pathological. We will automatically label the 20-year-old as a predator. Even if, once we investigate the relationship, not much harm or any harm is detectable. We don't care. A 12-year-old with a 20-year-old, creepy, it's wrong, it's very likely exploitative, there's very likely a massive power imbalance, there's very likely harm and massive amounts of trauma happening to the 12-year-old. And so we have this shortcut. When we see an age difference within a certain range, we don't need to hear anything else. We automatically assume that harm is happening and exploitation is happening and trauma is happening, and we're probably right. But we over-apply that. We apply that to any age difference. So you have a 25-year-old with a 55-year-old, and we apply the same shortcut, the same reaction. Oh, it's creepy, there's exploitation, there's trauma, there's harm, there's a power imbalance, something is happening. Now, could there be a power imbalance? Yes. Could there be exploitation? Yes. Could there be a problem? Yes. But just looking at an age difference like that doesn't say anything. Oh, so she says she met him when she was 20 years old, and I don't know how old he would have been. Maybe, I'm guessing he's around 60, so maybe he was 45 at the time. I'm just taking a rough guess. So 20 years old and 45. So it raises red flags that exploitation could be happening. 20 is pretty young, but it doesn't automatically indicate it. Once you reach a certain age, developmentally, psychologically, maturity-wise, legally, you start to be able to know for yourself, am I being exploited? A 12-year-old, we all understand, doesn't have that ability. Now, some 20-year-olds don't have that ability. The other thing here is that two 45-year-olds can have exploitation. Just because you have an age similarity does not negate the possibility of exploitation and harm and trauma. You can absolutely have abuse going on there. You can also have a 20-year-old abusing a 45-year-old. That can happen, and it does happen. Exploitation can happen in lots of different directions. But we can't just look at an age difference and go, ew, that's gross. That's what we do in our society, largely because of that heuristic, which is there for a good reason when we're talking about 12 and 20-year-olds or 15 and 20-year-olds. We overapply. The other thing is that it feels different to us. That doesn't usually happen. We don't usually see 20-year-olds and 45-year-olds dating. And it feels different. It's like barbecuing inside the house. You're thinking, well, we don't do that in our culture. We barbecue outside of the house. There's something wrong there. And when something feels different to us, we often label it as pathological without looking deeper into it. So maybe there is exploitation in this relationship. Let's find out.
I mean, when you look at Tom and Erica, he's 30-something years older than Erica, and when you see them together, you get it. You get why they're together.
And I don't know this other couple, but this person is, I'm sorry, I'm getting used to the characters. I'm getting into it. That this other couple that have 30, 35 years difference, that they apparently, according to her, have love, real love between them. And that is also true. It's also possible that it is a marriage of convenience or arrangement, or it's a exchange of some kind. Marriages all over the world happen not necessarily because of soulmate, romance, this sort of thing. So, but you can absolutely have love. I've talked with people about this. Some people will have 40 years difference, a 30-year-old with a 70-year-old. And the 30-year-old will come to my office and talk about how they can't even tell their friends and family that they're dating and that they're in love with this person because of the stigma, because everyone will shame them. Everyone will assume there's something desperately, what are you in it just for the money with this person? And the 30-year-old will say, this, my boyfriend, he's not even rich. I just love him. I don't know, maybe there's just something, we just connect on some level. And we need to stop as a society just judging these people for making consensual choices about their relationships. It's not a big deal. I mean, expand your mind. It's fine. Now, it can sometimes be not fine, but an age difference isn't a necessary indicator. And also age similarity doesn't negate problems, right? So we just need to stop associating age difference past a certain age with something that's terribly wrong.
It's a great idea. Hi, baby.
I'm excited about Tahoe. I'm excited.
Me too.
How do you feel about it? How's everything with Garcelle? Everything's good?
Well, I had a great dinner with her the other night. I
Oh,
feel
good.
a really good dinner.
Good.
Yeah. I think we'll be okay.
All right. So Lisa Rinna, they refer to her differently. I'm realizing they refer to her as Lisa and Rinna. So I'm just going to go with Lisa Rinna. And she is talking with her friend, and her friend says, how'd it go with Garcelle? And she says, it went really well. Yeah, I think it went really well. And I think that is a fair, conclusion to get from that. Because at the end, Garcelle said, well, I'm going to tread lightly, but I'm willing to move into the future. So there's some work to be done. It sounds like that Rinna needs to show that she cares and build trust back. But Garcelle is open, apparently. So let's watch.
I did hike with Lisa. I know that y'all talked it out.
I just feel like I am open to growing and figuring it out what our relationship is going to be.
My understanding was y'all were good to go.
No.
I think she thinks y'all are good.
Well, then,
And if you're
So the initial explanation from Garcelle was consistent with what I pulled away, and I think what Rinna pulled away, which was, again, I need to build things. Maybe Garcelle should have been more explicit about it. She said, well, I'm going to tread lightly, but I'm willing to move forward. Maybe Garcelle should have said something more clear, like, look, you're not out of the doghouse yet. I am going to be cautious with you until you prove to me that I can trust you. And so she's reiterating that. The friend is saying something that I don't think is really quite correct. And this is when we have triangulation and rumors that cause problems in relationships. So the friend here, I don't know her name. I'll get to use, again, I apologize truly for not knowing everyone. I'll get to know. But this other woman is saying, my impression was that you're good to go and everything is fine. And for Garcelle, she's like, no. Now, this is going to cause a problem probably because Garcelle is now going to think that Lisa Rinna thinks and is talking with other people that everything is fine when neither one of them walked away from that conversation thinking that everything was fine. So what's this person doing? Did this person misinterpret what Rinna told to her and now she's passing that along? Is she just making stuff up in her head? Does she have a hard time understanding what people are saying? Is she trying to provoke something? What's happening? I don't know. Let's watch.
bad. It takes more than one drink to fix our friendship.
if there's dishonesty in how you feel, I would go back and revisit the conversation. That there's no splinters left.
So, yeah, that's a good idea, but there weren't any splinters. The two of them understood quite clearly that for Garcelle, she accepts the apology and is going to take it easy, going to take some time, but she's open. They both understood that. This woman is saying, Rinna doesn't understand that, even though Rinna does understand that, and now she is saying to Garcelle, you need to correct that problem. And now Garcelle is going to get upset because she's going to go to Rinna, I'm guessing, and say, how come you think everything is fine? Everything is not fine. And then we have a problem all caused, I think, by this other person. Does this person have a history of this? Let me know in the comment.
There's gonna be splinters. I'd be stupid if I told you I trust her 100%.
Trying to be better, not bitter.
Oh, I like that. Better not bitter.
So that's something that people will talk about, and let me comment on that a little bit. They will label someone like Garcelle as being bitter. I think the word bitter implies that, I don't know, what's the implication of the bitter concept? They're holding on to anger. They want to hold on to anger. They're holding on to anger in a way that is sort of victim mentality. You'll hear that from people as well. But to be bitter in its purest form and purest definition is to hold resentment, is to be upset about something that happened. And for Garcelle and Rinna, they both agree that Rinna did something wrong. And so for Garcelle to still be upset and still be cautious but open seems rational. People will sometimes email me and say, I am talking to my therapist for a couple sessions. I just met them last week. I'm having a really hard time trusting my therapist. And I will say, well, why should you trust your therapist after 2 weeks? You barely know them. Plus, if you have been betrayed or abused or mistreated or neglected or harmed in some way, then you have extra reason to be a little cautious when you get close to someone like a therapist. So it's okay to not trust someone yet. It's not an act of distrust. It's just like you're open, but it takes time. Me and my wife have been in a relationship for many, many years, and I trust her, but only because we've been together for a long time. In the first few months of our dating relationship, I trusted her as much as I could at that point, but I didn't trust her as much as I do now. Trust takes time. My relationship with Bob, my relationship with Humberto, my relationship with Rebecca, my relationship with Colin, these are years-long relationships. It takes a long time for these relationships to build trust, and it's through experience. So anyway, I'm now worried about Garcelle and Rinna reigniting their conflicts.
I was walking the halls of the house and I couldn't sleep and I couldn't shake it and I couldn't shake it. I was feeling like this incredible dread. Who am I if I'm not working? Every day I woke up and I dreaded waking up. So I called a psychiatrist and I went on Lexapro.
All right, so she is talking about how during the pandemic she was locked in her house and didn't have anything to do, couldn't work. She apparently was in a Broadway musical, I think it sounds like, and that can cause a lot of feelings, a lot of demoralization, a lot of sadness, a lot of feeling stagnant, a lot of denial of our lives, a lot of denial of the ability to hug people and to be with people and to socialize. Socializing over Zoom is just not the same. It can be a good way to meet with people, but you have to be in person. I'm fully vaccinated. A lot of my friends and family are, in fact, I think everyone is fully vaccinated. And I got together with my family recently, my big family, all my brothers, sisters, nephews, nieces, parents, and it was wonderful. I got together also recently for a birthday party for Bob, whom some of you know from the podcast, and they're all vaccinated, and it was great. It's backyard, barbecue, dogs, summer air. Well, it's not summer yet, but anyway, very, very great. So the absence of that can have a real profound effect on our mood. And for some people, it can actually push people beyond the threshold into a diagnosis like depression or anxiety. It sounds like for this woman, it pushed her into some dark places, and she was having a really hard time. We didn't hear the symptoms, so I can't comment on the validity of a diagnosis, but she went to a psychiatrist and she is now taking Lexapro. I'm not a prescriber, I'm a therapist, but I work with prescribers, and I've taken classes on medications, psychotropics, but I don't prescribe. But anyway, point is that what I will comment on, and I don't know about this situation, but usually what we want to do is not prescribe medications right away. What we want to do is, unless it's indicated, unless someone is showing a presentation where we don't have time for therapy to work. Usually what we want to do is use psychotherapy. We want to go to a therapist and talk about it. What could a therapist do? Maybe nothing, given that the pandemic can't be lifted by a therapist. But I would venture to say that if she had gone to a therapist, and maybe she did, maybe she's just leaving that part out, that there could have been some things that could have helped get some things off of her chest, maybe problem solve about how to get her needs met. Maybe there's some traumas that are coming up that are again, I'm just speculating, but for some people, they're able to distract themselves from their traumas such with their careers and with activity. And then the pandemic happened and they couldn't distract themselves anymore and their traumas came up. I don't know if that's her, who knows. But that's my comment, is that the other thing I'll say is that Americans, and maybe people in other cultures, I don't know, but in our culture, there is this notion that when you have something wrong with you physically, mentally, that there's a pill for it. There's always a pill for it. There's, just take a pill and everything will be fine. It feels more palatable because I don't have to do anything. I just pop a pill. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to put any effort into it. I just take this pill and it'll magically take all of my problems away. What we find through research is that antidepressants don't have a really fantastic success rate. With psychotherapy combined with medication, then we see a much higher success rate. So I'll say that. But the way she said it, it seemed to exhibit that cultural notion of my life was falling apart, but I went to a psychiatrist, they gave me a pill, and everything was fine. So I want to dispel that myth. Now, it can be for some people. Absolutely. For some people, if they suffer from major depressive disorder or some sort of anxiety disorder, they take a medication like Lexapro. It can absolutely take away your symptoms without any psychotherapy at all. And maybe she's one of those people.
What's that?
That's an antidepressant.
Oh, okay.
It is the greatest thing. I did not want to have to see a psychiatrist. I felt that it was a sign of defeat. My problems are still there, but my attitude toward them is different.
All right, so that's great. Sounds like it worked. And it also sounds like she is trying to push back against stigma, which is also great. That she is advocating that if you are suffering from something, seek help from a professional and get that help. What I will add on to what they're talking about in this show is that psychotherapy is definitely something that people should consider, at least to try it out for 6 months if you are suffering from depression.
And run from my feelings and run from who I am and run from whatever.
Because I was running too. There's so much that these women don't know about my life and about my personal life. Because you know what? Everyone has problems. Everyone. And
yeah, I'll agree with that. The one thing that I have learned over my life, clinically and personally, is that everyone needs therapy all the time. Like, in terms of sometimes you really need it, and sometimes you just need it to get things off of your chest, to investigate yourself. We all have relational traumas from our past. It's just not possible to go through life without being hurt by someone, without being betrayed, without being neglected, without being ignored, without being humiliated. And all those things get under our skin and create defenses that can cause us to perpetuate problems in our lives. And she is, talking about that, which I agree with.
The bigger your life is, the bigger your problems are.
That I don't agree with. The bigger your life is, what's the implication on that? Like, her life is bigger than other people's lives? I don't know what that means exactly. I think everyone's life has meaning and importance and bigness, if you will. So I don't know what that means, but I'll reserve judgment on that.
Has anyone decided who they can live without and maybe weed out?
There's somebody
I already did all that. There's only about the dog and my husband, and that's about it. So, I'm down to 2. Yeah, those looking like the number one spot.
Tom and the dog.
Right. They're duking it out neck and neck. Next on The Real Housewives of...
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Let me know in the comments if you want me to continue watching this show or not. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.